Instead of creating pearls, the humble oyster has created a health scare. Following the hepatitis A outbreak, consumers have turned away from the once popular delicacy in droves.
The sales of oysters, they were down about 2/3. A lot of the customers were inquiring, making funny inquiries about it, but they were worried.
At the height of the scare, many restaurants in Newcastle and Lake Macquarie had trouble serving up oysters at all, with some forced to temporarily take them off the menu. The slump also carried over to seafood in general, with the Newcastle Co-op experiencing a 10% decline in fish sales.
People are health conscious these days, and it's just the public perception of oysters would make them ill, and it's not the case.
Since January 21st, 29 cases of hepatitis A were reported in the Hunter, almost half of which were directly linked with oyster consumption. However, health authorities say the outbreak has now passed. While consumer confidence is now slowly returning, seafood retailers who are feeling the pinch are hopeful that Easter will turn sales around.
It's not having a huge effect on us except in the oyster sales, which, like I said, we're lucky that we're not just a seafood restaurant. If we were, I think it would be having a dramatic effect on us.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
After 4 months of work, the ends of the 300-metre excavation finally meet. Heavy rain has hampered the work, but the job has been completed on schedule. It's a first step towards an underground rail link at Homebush to handle the stampede at the Sydney Games. The tunnel will be stabilised before the installation of drainage, lighting and track work, in readiness for the first Royal Easter Show at Homebush next year. The breakthrough is also a milestone for the subcontractor Shaft and Tunnel, which is based at Redhead, south of Newcastle. Its heavy machinery provided the light at the end of the tunnel, the $3 million contract, the latest for a business that's booming.
It's a big relief for us because it's a fairly critical program to get it through on time and get the trains running.
The company employs 260 people and was recently listed in a respected business magazine as the 7th fastest growing company in Australia. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Meet the Kerrigans, a suburban Aussie family who believe their home is their castle. To them, the high-voltage power lines and the airport runway merely add to the charm of their cherished lifestyle. When the government attempts to acquire their land, the Kerrigans refuse to budge and take on the system to save their precious home. Starring in the comedy is Sophie Lee, who says she drew on her experiences of growing up in Newcastle to help her performance in the film.
Do you know what's similar about this film and my upbringing in a way was that there's a real community feeling in the film. All the people in the street get together and support each other.
Created by the same team who produced the television current affairs satire Frontline, the low-budget film was shot in an amazing 12 days. Touted as the next Australian box office success, The Castle opens nationally next month.
The film is hilarious. It's a very funny comedy, and also it's a very warm film. There's a great sense of family values in it.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Newcastle was the place to be if you're in the market for an old tank, field gun or armoured personnel carrier. 48 surplus items, all part of a collection bought by the City Council in 1985, were being sold after a fruitless campaign to establish their historical value to the region. Japanese tanks and guns seized in the islands during the war attracted lively bidding. This one bought over the phone by a collector in the UK. Harley-Davidson motorbikes, howitzer guns and Land Rovers all cleared, most are good homes in military museums and private collections in Australia. Hundreds of other items with significant links to the region will be kept by the Newcastle Regional Museum. The collection was originally bought from the Tuggerah Military Museum on the Central Coast for $500,000. Today's sales returning $250,000. And another relic of the past was also bowing out today. The Dairy Farmers Co-op building at the west end of Hunter Street is being demolished to make way for a car yard. However, the landmark clock tower will be spared from demolition. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Residents have been battling for the past couple of years to have the New England Highway at Medford improved. Maitland City Council has agreed to support a $2 million Roads and Traffic Authority proposal to upgrade the highway intersections at Mitchell Drive, Chelmsford Drive and Chisholm Road.
There'll be a set of traffic lights at Chelmsford Drive and one at Chisholm Road, and they will be coordinated with the lights in other areas so that there'll be pretty much free flow of traffic.
It's hoped the lights will help control the traffic flow, as well as assisting vehicles to enter the highway safely.
We've got to, in some way, control the traffic, but also control the safety angle too, because there's a lot of coal trucks on that road, and we just want to ensure that the people coming out of those side streets will be able to get them onto the highway in some sort of safe manner.
Other safety measures, such as the use of red light cameras and advance warning amber flashing lights at intersections, are also being considered. Meanwhile, Maitland Council has approved a basketball stadium to be built on empty council land behind the town hall. The centre will be financed and built by the Maitland Basketball Association.
A lot of the youth of Maitland play basketball. They travel to Newcastle or they travel to local high schools to play. We really needed a basketball stadium in the central part of town.
Emma Ossian, NBN News. Schools from across the Hunter are taking part in the competition. It's part of an initiative to involve students in the International Environment Conference, Pathways to Sustainability, being held in Newcastle in June. The final debate on an environmental issue will be held in front of delegates at the conference.
So it's a really exciting thing that kids are going to actually get to perform in front of such an international audience.
Today saw Katara High in the yellow uniform take on Lambton in the blue. The topic, that life has become too complicated. In the end, the team from Lambton managed to persuade the adjudicator that life has not become too complicated, with technology only serving to make things easier. Emma Theossian, NBN News. Newcastle in the red dominated the field, taking an early lead over Merewether in the Year 10 final. The modified game of tens made it a free-flowing game, the tournament following on from last year's success. In the end, the stronger Newcastle side came through for a couple of late tries to cement a 27-5 victory over Merewether. The champions of both the Year 10 and Open divisions now progress through to the final series in Sydney, which will be played as curtain raisers to the Super 12 match between New South Wales Waratahs and Orange Free State from South Africa. That's being played at the Sydney Football Stadium on the 12th of April.
Last weekend's match against the Melbourne Knights was virtually over before it began. 2 goals in the opening 5 minutes put the Breakers on the back foot, eventually going down 2-1 despite a spirited fight back.
We're a little bit gung-ho, I think, and a couple of guys were caught out of position in the first 5 minutes, and we weren't really focused on what we're supposed to be doing, and so we suffered for it.
It's a mistake Cosmina doesn't want repeated this week. This morning, players were put through only a light training run at Breakers Stadium. The last time they met Gippsland in the opening rounds, it ended a 2-2 draw. And while the Falcons currently sit in second last, they've won their last 2 matches. The Breakers are third last, but Cosmina says his players haven't given up hope of a berth in the final 6.
What they have to realise now is that the season isn't over and done with, that we've still got a real slim chance of making it, and if we can get 4 wins out of 4, then that's what we should be aiming at.
It will take more than 4 wins against some of the top sides in the competition. It will require a complex set of results, with many of the top teams losing or drawing matches. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Under-manager Terry Shacklady had just started his shift at Gretley when he heard a conversation between 2 miners about water in the pit. The under-manager on the previous shift, Alistair McLean, handed his report to head under-manager Michael Coffey. Mr McLean was asked, "What's this considerable amount of water? Were the springs left on?" He replied, "No." When asked how did he know, Mr McLean said the fitter had checked and went on to explain that once the machine started, the water went away. The under-managers didn't start an investigation despite not knowing the source of the seepage. Shortly after, Terry Shacklady asked when test drilling was going to start, but denied that was prompted by concerns raised in the report. Less than 24 hours later, 4 men were drowned after cutting into an old water-filled shaft. When Mr Shacklady was asked what his response would be if he did investigate and found water in the face of the seam, he said, "It was a question that kept haunting me, but on reflection, I would have thought it was normal for Gretley." The hearings will recess for 3 days before resuming in Newcastle on Monday. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
just 6 weeks old, the multicoloured Glendore Public School has already generated school pride in its young charges. The performance was in honour of the school's opening ceremony, attended by a host of local dignitaries as well as the Education Minister, John Aquilina. In one of the fastest growing areas in the Hunter, the $3.4 million school was built when it became apparent the relatively new Maryland school couldn't cope with the increasing enrolments.
This is what we call a 14-course school, but the hall, built with the assistance also of Newcastle City Council, was built to a 21-course school specification. So down the track, of course, we envisage enlarging this school.
A short while later, celebrations extended to Katara High School for the official opening of its new $1.3 million multi-purpose centre. Featuring an Olympic-sized basketball court, the centre will also be used for dramatic and musical activities. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Quick greens and strong blustery winds made for testing conditions during the opening round matches. Defending champion Gary Willis from the ACT failed to get a handle on the pace, going down to Port Macquarie's Frank Smith by 8 shots in his opening encounter. The field is divided into 4 pools, with the winner of each pool going through to the semis.
The 24 bowlers have all been selected to play in this. We've picked them from all over the state, South Australia, Queensland, and quite a lot from New South Wales.
One of the favourites to make it to the semis is former Commonwealth Games gold medalist Rob Perella. The flamboyant Queenslander made short work of 4 times hub champion and former Australian rep Bobby King, winning 31-10. Perella is fresh from guiding his team to victory in the prestigious Gold Coast Fours and now has the hub of the Hunter firmly in his sights.
I never won this tournament, and it's one of them that I like to win. I am playing pretty well, so I just hope that I can play as well as I played this morning and I could go right through.
The round-robin pool matches go through until Sunday morning. The semi-finals will be decided Sunday afternoon, with the final set down for 9:30 on Monday morning. Phil Hind, NBN News.
This is what we needed in the seafood industry, just the Easter rush to get over the Wallace Lake scare.
The Newcastle Rowing Club found a permanent home only in 1993 in a disused warehouse on the Merriweather Wharf. With plans to build a new hotel on the site, it's now casting around for a new headquarters.
Our preferred sites are near the Cowper Street Bridge. We're looking for a sandy beach and good public access to the facility.
Time is at a premium. The Honeysuckle Development Corporation has given the club till the middle of the year to move out and make way for the proposed Holiday Inn, even though the project is still mired in council controversy. The club is hoping a council working party will be formed to smooth the transition.
We really want to get something more permanent. We would prefer to move from this site to a more permanent site without too many moves in between.
The club is keen to resettle. With a healthy bank balance and promises of tax breaks, it wants to get the new club up and running to take advantage of the growing interest in the sport.
Rowing is an important part of Newcastle's history. We want to be able to offer the sport to Newcastle people. And I have to say the interest in the sport, certainly since Atlanta, the Olympic Games in Atlanta, has been tremendous, especially amongst women.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
200 players from throughout the state met at Wyong RSL Sports Centre over the Easter break, all vying for nearly $10,000 in prize money. After a tough three-set match against Newcastle's Thomas Perea yesterday, Sydney's Jamie Holmes bounced back for another strong performance in the finals. He gave opponent Nathan Healy little chance to recover from his serves. The rising young star from Gosford hadn't dropped a set on his way to the final, and despite a near-perfect game yesterday, Healy struggled to regain his form. Ranked number 1 in the 18 and unders in Australia, Healy was defeated 6-3, 6-1. The convincing victory netting Holmes the winning trophy and a $1,500 cheque.
I thought it was going to be, quite a tough match today actually, because Nathan's been doing quite well in the satellite tournaments we've been playing leading up to this tournament, so I knew I was going to be in for a bit of a tough match today.
In the women's finals, number 1 seed Jane Taylor of Maitland was up against Gosford's Melissa Dowes. The plucky 15-year-old had beaten the number 2 seed in the semi-final, but her determination was no match for Taylor's experience, whose solid playing and strength pushed her through 6-3, 6-4. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
It's not a confused surfer looking for the nearest beach, but rather preparation for the exhibition of more than 130 photographs, capturing the sun, sand and surfing culture of the 60s. Newcastle Region Library is playing host to a stunning array of black and white photographs, taken by surfing guru Jack Eden. Eden captures the people and events of Australian surfing life that pioneered the nation's beach culture. With action shots of surfing legends like Midget Farrelly and Nat Young, organisers say the exhibition will appeal to the young and the young at heart.
Black and white photos from the 60s so they can relive their youth, and additionally for the younger people, they can see what it was really like back in the 30 odd years ago.
More than 5,000 people are expected to wipe themselves out over the next month, reliving memories of surfing years gone by.
Newcastle University's School of Medicine pioneered an approach to medical education, choosing students by their personal qualities as well as academic performance. It's been so successful, medical schools throughout Australia and overseas have adopted the university's practices. For nearly 14 years, Professor John Hamilton has helped establish the school's reputation. Now he plans to resign at the end of the year.
It's time for a new person to come and take the challenges that are sitting there waiting.
While Professor Hamilton insists his decision is motivated by a desire for change, it's clear he's still reeling from savage funding cuts to the school.
There's no question that when you get 20% budget cut, that is a mighty blow to an institution. And we have had to sustain that, and we're in the process of working our miserable way through that outcome.
Professor Hamilton plans to take a sabbatical in the UK and Europe to explore his options and to help establish international contacts for the school. He has a permanent professorial chair at the university and may return to Newcastle for teaching and research. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
The Hunters basketball squad is a collection of up-and-coming junior players. They play in the Continental Basketball Association, a national championship one level below the National League. Today, Club Phoenix announced it will be the squad's major sponsor for the 1997 season, offering a package worth more than $12,000. The club will also become the preferred venue for the local Basketball Association meetings and functions. Association General Manager Jim Gallagher says the support will help ensure the region's young basketballers continue to have every opportunity to reach the National League.
This gives the players who are just below that level the opportunity to build their skills and work to getting that opportunity.
They get this big onslaught of colour, so to catch their attention and distract them from what they're actually here for.
Like so many almost idle ships on a painted ocean, the school sailing fleet is making the lake even more of a picture.
Oh, it's a bit not very windy out here today.
The 500 or so young sailors come from the Hunter, Sydney, Central and North Coast, Victoria and the ACT.
I'm from Maitland Grosvenor High, in east from Sydney.
Austin.
Have you been in these before?
No, first year.
It's so great to see little ones from the age of 6, from 6 onwards, right through to their senior years at school, sailing all over the lake, competing against all other schools.
Finally, the starter's gun, and somehow the jumble of boats sort themselves into their respective divisions, skippers keeping a watch for an expected wind change that will present different challenges.
It's a real competitive thing, you know, they're not out here just to lay around and poke fun at each other, they're there to win.